Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It is July 22nd, 2025. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, folks, just going to read through some posted odds uh, to win the championship in the NBA, right? It is late July. Folks, I'm just telling you, the summer is the time to make your moves, right? In terms of locking in futures at absurd prices. Now, the West, to me, is where the action is. The Jason Tatum injury, Boston dismantling, different players going to different teams, the Knicks lack of defense, the Knicks new head coach. Continuity helps, right? You see a team with a new head coach, folks, that's a bridge too far. The fact that Brunson and Cat really can't play defense, at least not on the level that other teams are playing defense, whether it's Cleveland in the Eastern Conference, whether it's OKC in the Western Conference, really makes the East kind of like the underdog in terms of winning the NBA championship. I'm not saying it's not possible, right? Injuries happen. Tatum, of course, Tyrese Halliburton got injured. Injuries happen and materially change things. But if you're betting, you can't bank on injuries. So let's look at the West. From this seat, folks, OKC looks like a dynasty. They have an excellent coach. They have a young core. All of the big names have gotten new deals, right? Shea is signed. Chet Holmgren is signed. Jalen Williams is signed. They have a defensive culture. They just went through a draft where they got one of the best young prospects, a big, right? So they have more depth at big, right? Hartenstein, Holmgren, and now the first round pick they got out of Georgetown. They have more depth at big than most teams. Just understand, too, that you're talking about a team that has more upcoming high draft picks than most teams, right? So from where I sit, and granted, this team got pushed to 2 Game 7s in the playoffs. From where I sit, OKC's best ball's ahead of them. And they're the defending champions, right? Now understand, the odds are skewed. The reason why you want to bet in July and August as opposed to October on futures is because many fans just aren't paying attention right now. They don't know what's going on. That's obvious from the lines. So, Houston, right, the 2 seed from last year in the Western Conference. They have a new guy, Kevin Durant, right? They're going off at a plus 700. You're getting substantially better odds on them to win the NBA championship than you are OKC at a plus 265. Right? Make no mistake, Houston's dangerous. Denver got rid of Michael Porter. Denver is, we'll put it diplomatically, too much of a one-man show. Right, folks? Joker just averaged a triple-double from the center position. Right? If anything happens to Joker, hurt ankle, hurt knee, hurt feelings, Denver's finished. Right? You're dealing with a narrow bandwidth with the Denver Nuggets. You heard me too mention continuity. You and I know there's a lot of dysfunction in Denver. Right? They blew out their coach last year. They have less continuity in terms of the head coach than OKC, and Houston. Right? Everybody loves the new head coach when he comes in late in the year and you only have to deal with his leadership 1 or 2 months. Folks, it's a different animal when the head coach is there from the start of preseason. Then you're 3 months into the season, and let's say the team isn't, running away with the conference. People are pointing fingers. Players start getting tough questions from the press. Everyone is looking for someone to scapegoat. This new coach, he's not wearing the ring that the, proven prior head coach had. Things can go off the rails. Well, let's talk about a totally undeserved odds given to a team here. The Lakers, plus 1,400. Folks, how are the Lakers getting shorter odds than the Clippers? Right, folks? LeBron and Luka haven't proven to anyone that they can play together. DeAndre Ayton really hasn't lived up to his draft position. Has Marcus Smart, new Laker, learned how to shoot? So what we're doing here is trying to take advantage of casino mispricings. Right? I personally believe that OKC wins the Western Conference. I'll agree you need to put some money on Houston, although you and I know KD's not going to be able to play 4 quarters of defense anytime soon. And you understand that Shea, who these days is averaging more per game than KD, is actually an above average defensive player. Right? You understand Father Time waits for no one. Right? We call boxing a young man's game. Just understand you have, guys in boxing, Manny Pacquiao, who are several years older than LeBron James. You have other guys who are around LeBron's age, Zhili Zhang. Basketball is really the young man's game, and KD, of course, is well into his 30s. Right? So let me just say, there's a team here in the West, folks. They're having arguably the best offseason of any team in the NBA. Understand, too, they have a lot going for them. One of the deepest pocketed owners. You have guys on the team who are actively going out and recruiting friends. That's who James Harden is. And of course, you have a team that is loaded. In other words, deep. This is the opposite of Denver, where, if Joker's walking down the stairs, the franchise pauses. You have to make sure he makes it all the way down the stairs. If he slips and anything goes wrong, the season's over. Right? With the Clippers, you have depth to the point where if Kawhi Leonard says, hey, I'm feeling a tinge in my knee, you can say, hey, player, take the game off. Take tomorrow off. We have the depth to carry us through the regular season. So, what I want people to do is to realize that Bogdan Bogdanovic last year hit 42% of his threes. Bradley Beal last year hit 38% of his threes. These guys are now Clippers. Right? The Clippers will be able to spread the floor in a way that most teams won't be able to. Understand, Chris Paul is now a Clipper. Right? You don't need Chris Paul to carry the team. You just need a point guard who knows basketball, who's not going to turn the ball over that much. You just need an extra set. of 6 fouls. So that if it's one of those rough and tumble games and your starter is in trouble with the referees, you know Chris Paul can come in, handle the minutes, not turn over the ball, have that mid-range jumper. That's his forte. He's not long-range, he's mid-range. Have that mid-range jumper that should be open for him. Because the long-range guys, Bogdanovic and Beal, should be spreading the defense. Right? Let me also say, too, and this is important because the Clippers play in LA. Chris Paul is the vet who can handle public relations. Right? You don't have to tie up one of these young guys. If you could actually say with a straight face, the Clippers have a lot of young guys, you don't have to tie up one of these young guys with PR duties. Chris Paul can handle the press, right? He was in LA for years before in his earlier stint. Right? By the way, the team is going to be barely recognizable to him. Even the arena is new. Right? But the real story with the Clippers, and I'm telling you, this Zubac guy is underrated. It's the bigs they added. Don't sleep on Brook Lopez, shot blocker. Defensively above average. Can spread the defense even more. Is not paint-centric. Right? Don't sleep on him, and don't sleep on John Collins. Folks, you're talking about a young guy who, you can close your eyes, he's getting 8 boards for you. Right? Last year, you could tell they didn't really have the full depth at big. They were too reliant on Zubac. Folks, this year they have depth at the big position. Right? Their bigs can handle things. Let me also point out, of course, you have their core, and they've done a lot to bring the band back together. Right? Nicholas Batum apparently is never going to be allowed to retire as long as Steve Ballmer owns a basketball team. He's back. Right? Just understand, you still have Kawhi Leonard. Folks, you were watching the Clippers in the playoffs last year and you thought to yourself, wow, Kawhi still has it. Right? A healthy Kawhi Leonard, and understand, they can monitor his minutes because of this level of depth. Right? A healthy Kawhi Leonard can carry the team. Let me mention a guy who can definitely carry a team. Maybe not in games 6 and 7 of a playoff series, but certainly in games 1 through 5. Right? There are going to be 2 games during that stretch where James Harden just takes the team on his back and delivers a win. Right? Unlike Bradley Beal, unlike Bogdanovic, Harden is a streak shooter from 3. Right? Bradley Beal and Bogdanovic are more, Chris Mullin. I'm not saying they're as good as Chris Mullin, but they're more Chris Mullin, KD type shooters. Where, more games than not, the guy's going to be able to hit from 3. James Harden's a guy who is a streak shooter. In other words, when he's on, my goodness, the building's on fire. When he's off, he's a volume shooter. Right? Just understand, if he's on with these more reliable long-range guys, the Clippers, who right now you're getting longer odds on, plus 1,800 versus the Lakers, plus 1,400. And folks, the teams aren't close. Right? AD's no longer a Laker. Right? There's some games where DeAndre Ayton is missing. You can't even tell he's in the game. Right, my point to you is the Clippers at plus 1800, folks, that's a profound casino mispricing. $2 on the Clippers. They were in the playoffs last year. If they win it all, and we can all dream, that's $36 that you win, right? That's what 18 to 1 means. If anything happens to OKC, right? Shea gets hurt. You know, young guys can't handle the money, right? Chet and Jalen are truly wealthy for the first time in their careers. You know, they wouldn't be the first guys you've heard of, you know, being at the club, having baby mama drama with multiple women, you know, hanging around the wrong crowd. That's what that extra money sometimes does to people, right? If OKC implodes, right, I'm just telling you, the Clippers can compete with Houston, who you're getting at a plus 700, right? The Clippers plus 1800, right? So this team is loaded. Understand, too, and we need to think about stuff like this, right? Chris Dunn is back, by the way, excellent defender. Microsoft's doing well. Microsoft's involved in AI. I mention Microsoft because just understand, Ballmer is one of the wealthiest owners in the league. Right? He's one of the biggest shareholders of Microsoft. The Clippers are spending a lot of money, but understand, ownership here has a lot of money to spend. Now, contrast that with the Lakers, and don't get me wrong. The ownership of the Dodgers, they're loaded. But you have a new owner. This is on par with a new head coach. Right? People don't talk about this. You have a new owner who's just figuring out how to run a basketball team. Right, folks? A lot of what the Lakers do this year is going to be deciding whether to keep the people hired by the old administration. Right? And understand, Jeannie Buss, you know, the Jerry Buss family really ran the Lakers like a family business. Right? You know, contrast Ty Lue with LeBron's former broadcast partner, who, of course, ended up being hired to run the Lakers. Right? I mean, you know, all I could say is the Lakers are going to be going through talent evaluation. Players getting to know the owner. They're not in position. Number one, their talent's not as deep as the Clippers' talent. Right? Contrast Laker bigs with Zubac, Brook Lopez, John Collins. Folks, it's not close. Right? It's not close. You know, let me say, too, that Kawhi on certain nights can be an absolute stopper defensively. While he has a lot of steals, Luka is not defensively blessed. Can we agree on that? Right? I've mentioned before, LeBron last year on a team where, you know, several guys had positive plus minuses. After all, the team won 50-something games last year. LeBron had a negative plus minus for the season. Let me also say, too, that I know Bronny has looked good in Summer League basketball. Can we remember that it's Summer League basketball? Bronny in NBA basketball, right, that's really what matters, hasn't looked that good. Folks, he's under contract for 3 more years. right? So to me, right here at a plus 1800, before the world realizes that the Clippers have Bradley Beal, the Clippers have Chris Paul, the Clippers have John Collins, the Clippers now have Brook Lopez, they still have Kawhi Leonard, they still have James Harden, they still have Nicholas Batum, they still have Chris Dunn. Right, folks? Once the world figures that out, this plus 1800 is going to drop precipitously. Right? You know, continuity at ownership, continuity at head coach. Both guys are above average in their fields. Team continuity with some great additions. Vastly improved depth at shooting. Vastly improved depth with the bigs. And you're getting them at 18-1. Right, folks? These guys are hungry too. How many rings has Chris Paul won? How many rings has Bradley Beal won? How many rings has James Harden won? They're hungry. They haven't done it yet. Ballmer would like nothing better. He's built the arena. He would like nothing better than to have a championship banner hanging from the ceiling. Now, you can't say that about all owners. Right? This new ownership group with the Celtics, they're dismantling a team that had a lot going on. Right? Miles Turner is no longer a Indiana Pacer. Right? You understand, hungry owners, even when they realize that because of injury, their team that just got to an NBA Finals isn't going to win it next year. Hungry owners would try to keep the band together. Right, folks? I mentioned the Pacers simply because they're an elite team. They're the defending Eastern Conference champions. Right, folks? A key part of that team has left to play for the Bucks. Right? Boston, folks, Porzingis gone. Holiday gone. Folks, understand, teams are dismantling. Not the Clippers. Right? I understand Norm Powell is gone, but you have to give up something to get Bradley Beal. Right? You know, let's just say the Clippers are rebuilding. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They shouldn't be 18-1 to win it all. Right? They were in the playoffs last year. Right? I'm positive they have the depth here to make sure that guys who have injury histories, like Kawhi Leonard, are going to be ready for the finals. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here, right? I do think OKC wins the conference if they're healthy. But Kawhi Leonard's going to be ready for the playoffs. Right? They have the bigs now to give Zubac some time off the court. They have the three-point shooting where it doesn't have to be Harden and Kawhi taking threes. If you're getting longer odds on the Clippers than you are the Lakers with new ownership, you know the casinos are kidding themselves. Right? Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. Quite frankly, I think the Clippers should be getting shorter odds than the minus 800 Denver Nuggets. And I believe Joker's the best player in the game. It's just that there isn't as much around Joker as there is around James Harden with the Clippers. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. Now's the time to look around, not just the NBA, but also the NFL. Right? And I understand. We don't quite know how good these rookies are. Folks, I'm just telling you, most of the time, rookies don't matter. Right? You know, occasionally some rookie, Michael Jordan, Elijah Wan, right? Some rookie's going to show up and from day one be playing at an all-star level, right? Billy Sims, right? Folks, you and I know that's rare, right? Most of the time, the great rookies are on terrible teams that have so much work to do that even if the rookie is a, you know, 5-star pro player, right? That rookie's not in a situation where they're going to matter much in the playoffs if they make the playoffs, right? So to me, you know, I know Bradley Beal is a great shooter. You know, I know Brook Lopez is underrated. He's been in the league a long time, but understand with bigs, right? A lot of being a big is knowing the position, knowing where to be defensively, knowing how to block shots. Brook Lopez knows all of that. And of course, it helps to have an outside shot, which he has. Right? You're talking about a guy who's 7-1. This is a major improvement for the Clippers. Right? So, Clippers at 18-1, folks, view them as a hedge. Lord knows you're getting them cheap enough to have them as a hedge. Right? So, a guy like me, I'm thinking, oh yeah, you know, OKC looks like a dynasty. The world hasn't quite figured out the numbers from last year. I'll agree. Seeing OKC in Game 7s in the playoffs wasn't exactly reassuring, right? Didn't have you thinking of, you know, Russell Celtics, right? You know, Jordan never played in a Game 7, has 6 rings. At the same time, folks, continuity, youth, defensive culture, guys like Alex Caruso, he'll be back, right? You know, a lot of bigs. The ability to put a Chet Holmgren on a TJ McConnell for a stretch. You know, but life does have some uncertainty. If I'm going to hedge it, and you're telling me one of the best teams in the Western Conference is going off at 18-1 to win it all, count me in. Take a hard look at the Clippers. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comments section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.